Hi everyone. In this lab we're going to be tracking the number of radioactive nuclei in an isotope and tracking the decay process using radioactive dating methods. So if you haven't looked over the lecture yet, I would recommend doing that before beginning this lab so that you have a good understanding of radioactive decay and dating methods. So to start off, we have a few things listed out here. I have the probability of decay listed here, and we're going to use the number 0.1. And then you want to have time listed in this column, and next to it the number of radioactive nuclei remaining. And we're going to track time from the starting position 0 to 100. So I've shown you all how to use this pattern to click and drag down, but I want to show you another method. So make sure that 0 is in cell A4, and then we will go to Fill, Series. We'll select Columns. There are different options here, but we want to use linear. And we want the step value to be 1, so this is going to increase by 1. And we want values from 0 to 100, so the stop value will be 100. Then we'll press OK, and as you can see, this is filled out from 0 to 100. Now we are going to track 240 nuclei, and we want to see how these nuclei decay over time. So in cell D4, we're just going to input the number 1. So 1 is going to indicate that the nucleus has not decayed. A number of 0 will indicate that the nucleus has decayed. So during time 0, all 240 nuclei are at their original starting position, so we want the number 1 to be indicated for all of them. So we need to fill this out from cell D4 to II4. And there's an easier way to do this than having to click and drag and scroll all the way. On your keyboard, press key F5. And we're going to put in II4 as the reference, so it will automatically jump to that cell. Then I'm going to put a 1 here, and then I'm going to press Control Shift left arrow key, and I'm going to press Control R, and this will fill out everything across all of these cells. Okay, now we have all 240 of our nuclei listed out, and this is at time 0, so we want to see what happens over time. And we are going to use a random number generator to indicate whether the nucleus has decayed or not. So this is the function we're going to use. We're going to use an if statement, rand, and if this is greater than or equal to cell B1, our probability decay, then input a 1. If not, input a 0. And we want to make sure that if a 0 is indicated that these nuclei that decayed are going to stay decayed throughout time and are not going to somehow have a 1 placed for that value. So that's what we're going to do here. Now we need this formula copied for all of these cells, and Excel won't let you double click to automatically fill out the spreadsheet like you can to fill out columns. It won't do the same thing for rows, so I'm just going to use the F5 key again just to quickly jump to II4. And I'm going to put the formula here, but I'm going to make sure that the cell is II4 because we want it to correspond with the individual nuclei. So I'll press enter, then I'll click this cell, press Control Shift, left arrow key, Control R, and it will automatically copy this formula in the highlighted cells. So just double check and make sure that it worked, that you see some ones and zeros that are randomly generated. And as you can see, it adjusts based on the cell. Everything looks good there. And we want to do this for all these rows and columns. Go to row 5 because this has our formula. Press Control Shift, right arrow key, and then I'm going to drag this down to cell 104. And everything should be good. Now we need to count the number of radioactive nuclei that are remaining. So we're going to use a COUNTIF formula here. So we're going to use COUNTIF cells D4 through II4 have a 1 in them. And you should get 240. So since we have 240 nuclei at time 0, they're all going to be 1. So that makes sense. Now we're going to double click, and this will automatically fill out the rest of the spreadsheet. So note that when you press F9, you can change the numbers because we're using random number generators. But you should see something similar to this. Now we are going to create a scatter plot of all of these data points. So I want to select everything in column A and B. So I'm just going to do Control Shift, right arrow, down arrow to select everything. Insert, and we're going to choose a scatter plot. Now I'm going to move this to the bottom of my spreadsheet so that it's a little bit out of the way. So I went ahead and gave my chart a title, and I added T and N here. So you can do this in chart tools. If you go to add chart element axis titles, it will allow you to put the different titles there. I also want to adjust the increments to smaller units. So I'm going to right click on the horizontal axis, press Format Axis, and then you'll see this come up here. So I'm going to change this to 5 units. And I'm going to do the same thing and right click the vertical axis, press Format Axis, and I'm going to change this to 20 units. And now our graph is a little easier to read. Okay, now I have my graph how I like it, and you can press F9 and you can see how the graph changes with the different values. You can also adjust the probability of decay and see how this graph changes. So you can see that the curve is a bit different, and play around with different values and just see what happens. I'm going to just put this back at 0.1